Okay, welcome back to another video on the Maths channel. It's your teacher, Mr. Lim here. In this video, we're going to be looking at scale factors in similar figures. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to review the use of a scale factor to find unknown lengths in similar figures. So let's first ask ourselves, what are similar figures? If two shapes are similar, they are the same shape, but different in size. So that means that all corresponding or all matching angles are equal, but all corresponding or matching sides are in the same ratio. So, are the following two shapes similar? Why or why not? Maybe pause the video, see if you can work this one out. Okay, so we can see here that the two shapes are similar because all the corresponding angles are equal. So here, this angle, this 100 degrees, corresponds with this one. This 140 corresponds with this 140. This 40 corresponds with this 40. And this 80 corresponds with this 80. So all corresponding or all matching angles are equal. So what can we also tell from this? We can also tell that all the corresponding sides are in the same ratio. So if we want to work out the ratio, we take the biggest corresponding side and divide it by the smallest one. So here we can see PS corresponds with DC. 8 divided by 4 is 2. SR corresponds with CB. 9 divided by 4.5 is also 2. QR corresponds to AB, 10 divided by 5 is also 2. And PQ corresponds to DA, 6 divided by 3, also 2. Okay, so yes, they are similar because all the corresponding angles are equal. Right, now, is it possible for two shapes to not be similar if all the corresponding angles are equal? Maybe pause the video so you can think about this one. Well, the answer is no. Okay, they have to be similar. If all of the corresponding angles are equal, then the two shapes will be similar. So no, they will be similar. Right, another way of describing two similar figures is that one is just a larger version of the other, or is an enlargement of the other. The symbol that we use for is similar to is 3 vertical lines. So in above example, ABCD is similar to, remember order is important, A corresponds to Q, B corresponds to R, C corresponds to S, and D corresponds to P. So when I say order is important, I don't mean it needs to be in alphabetical order. I mean whatever order this is in, it needs to correspond with this. A matches with Q, B matches with R, C matches with S, D matches with P. Alright. Let's have a look at the next part of this lesson, which is finding and using the scale factor. So the scale factor, I might use SF later on, is equal to the larger corresponding side divided by the smaller corresponding side. So we're going to use that and we're going to multiply or divide by the scale factor depending on the unknown side that we're finding out. So if the side we are trying to find is part of the larger shape, we take the smaller corresponding side and multiply it by the scale factor. if the side that we are finding is part of the smaller one, then we take the bigger corresponding side and divide by the scale factor. So let's have a look at some examples. Question A, find the scale factor. So here we can see that this side corresponds to that. So the scale factor is equal to the larger divided by the smaller. 6 divided by 4 is 1.5. Okay, so we've got a scale factor of 1.5. So now we can answer question B. Find the value of x. X is over here. I might use this one. X is over here, and that corresponds with this. Okay, so this side matches with this. Now, because x is part of the larger shape, we need to multiply. So x is equal to the smaller corresponding side, the 3. I'm going to multiply it by the scale factor of 1.5, which is equal to 4.5. So x is equal to 4.5 centimeters. C, find the value of y. Well, y is over here, and that matches with this side, 7.5. But this time, y is part of the smaller shape. So y is equal to, we'll take the corresponding side, 7.5, and this time we're going to divide by the scale factor. And 7.5 divided by 1.5 is 5. So y is equal to 5 centimeters. Right, this question here says that these two shapes are similar. Write a similarity statement for the two shapes. Complete the following. Find the scale factor, find the value of x, and find the value of y. Let's pause the video and see if we can have a go with this. Alright, question A. A similarity statement. So, I'm going to write A, B, C, D is similar to. Now, what does A correspond with? So, we've got A to B. So we can see here that when we go from A to B and then up to C, we can see that BC is shorter than AD. So A actually corresponds to E. So if I go from E to F and then up to G, can you see how that's smaller than H? So A corresponds to E, B corresponds to F, C corresponds to G, and D corresponds with H. Now it just so happens that these are in alphabetical order, okay, but it's not always like that. Sometimes this can be pretty tricky to do. So another hint or advice I would give is maybe look for a particular vertex or point that's unique. So if we let me just get rid of this. We can see that D is between the longest side and this slant. And on the other shape, the longest side is here and the slant is here. So we can see here that D corresponds with H. So I might just write the letter H here. From here I can see, okay, the slant bit is C, the slant bit here is G. The longest side is A, the longest side from H is E. And therefore B has to be the last remaining one, F. And so if we're going to go from A to B to C to D, it's going to correspond from E to F to G to H. Okay, so that's another way that you might find helpful. Question B. Complete the following. EH over something is equal to FG over something. So I'm going to highlight these. Let's get rid of all this. EH is the longest side. Okay, and so that's going to correspond with the longest side here. But remember, we don't just write AD or DA. We need to pick one of them. Okay, one of them is the correct one. So E to H will be A to D. So if we have a look here, E to H, first to last, will correspond with A to D. Okay, so the bigger one over the smaller one is going to equal to FG. So what we could do is we could just look at this. Look at it here. F to G will be B to C. Okay, and so that's how we do that. So what this is saying is, if we were to take the longest side divided by the corresponding smaller side, it's going to give us the same answer if we were to take another long side and divide it by the corresponding shorter side. Question C, find the scale factor. So now we're going to be looking at these two shapes. Okay, we can see here that this corresponds to this, and I'm specifically looking at these two because we are given those values. We can also see that 3 corresponds to x, but I can't work out the scale factor with that. Y corresponds with 7, but I can't work out the scale factor with that. So I'm going to be using these two. So the scale factor is going to equal to 5 over 2 or 2.5. And so now we can work out question D and E. We're going to use the scale factor to work out x and y. X is part of the longer or the bigger figure. So the smaller corresponding side is the 3. So we're going to multiply. I'm going to take the smaller corresponding side, I'm going to multiply by the scale factor 2.5. 7.5. Okay, so x is 7.5. And question E, find the value of y. We can see here that y is the slant, and that will correspond with this slant of 7. Because y is part of a smaller shape, we're going to use division. 7 divided by the scale factor. .8. Okay. All right. Let's have a look at some more examples. The following pairs of figures are similar. For each pair, find the scale factor, the value of x, and the value of y. So why don't you pause the video, have a go with these two, see if you can work these out. Alright, so I'm going to call this one part A and this one part B. Okay, so part A, the scale factor. So we can see here that this angle is equal to this one, which is in between a long side and a shorter one. A long side and a shorter one. So it seems like this 4 is connected to the longer side, this 7 is connected to the longer side. So we can use that to work out our scale factor. The scale factor is equal to 7 over 4, right? The bigger over the smaller corresponding side. 7 divided by 4 is 1.75. So that's our scale factor. To work out x, we can see that x corresponds with the 2. So because x is part of the bigger shape, I'm going to take the smaller corresponding side and multiply by the scale factor, which is 3.5. And y is part of the smaller corresponding side, and that corresponds with the, it's part of the smaller similar figure. That's going to correspond with the 5.25. So I'm going to take the largest corresponding side, I'm going to divide by the scale factor. Which is 3. Right, so y is 3. For question B here, we can see that this radius, let's use a different color. This radius corresponds with that radius. We can see that this x is shorter than this side. So the shorter one here is 1.5. And therefore, we can say that the 0.8 corresponds with that y. So, similar figures. The scale factor is equal to, well, the only ones that match that we have numbers for is the blue ones. 1.25 over 0.5, which is 2.5. So what is x? Well, x is part of the smaller one, so we're going to divide. I'm going to take the larger corresponding side, the 1.5, and divide it by the scale factor. 0.6. And y is part of the larger corresponding side, so I'm going to take the part of the larger similar shape. So I'm going to take the smaller corresponding side and multiply it by the scale factor, which is 2. Alright, let's have a look at these ones. Find the value of the pronumeral if the pairs of triangles are similar. Round your answer to 1 decimal place in part D. So whenever we've got a triangle in a triangle, okay, these ones we have to know a bit more algebra. Okay, so we can see here that the scale factor will be this over this. Okay, so maybe it'll be helpful to just point out the two similar triangles first. This triangle here, that small one, is similar to this big one. Okay, so they are similar. That means that this big corresponding side corresponds with this smaller one. They match. So scale factor is 2 over 1, which is 2. So we want to work out x. We can see here that x plus 2, this divided by this, because they correspond, the larger corresponding side over the smaller corresponding side will equal to 2. So now it's just algebra. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And that's the value of x. Alright. We might actually find it easier, rather than working out what the scale factor is and then using that, we can just set up two ratios and make them equal to each other, because we know that they will be equal. So what do I mean by this? I know that this longer side divided by the shorter one, because they are corresponding, they match. X plus the half divided by the half. Whatever the answer is going to equal to this longer corresponding side over the shorter corresponding side. They're going to give us the same answer. So what I can do now is I can just multiply both sides by 0.5 by this one, okay, to get rid of the fraction. So x plus half, well, what is 1.2 over 0.4, and what's that times the half? Is equal to 1.5. Therefore, we can now just subtract half from both sides, so x is equal to 1. Alright, why don't you use the same technique and see if you can answer questions C and D. Just pause the video and have a go with this one, with these two. Alright, so this is the longer corresponding side, which is x plus 5, over the shorter corresponding side is just a 5. Right, so we can see this is the big triangle. Right, here's the small one. So we know that this longer side corresponds with this shorter side. Okay, so x plus 5 over 5. That's going to equal to this longer side of 11 over the shorter side, which is the 8. Okay, not the 3, because we want the shorter side of the smaller triangle. So now what we could do is we could just get rid of this fraction by multiplying by this 5. So x plus 5 is equal to 55 on 8. Okay, just multiply by 5. And when you multiply, you only multiply the numerator, the top. Okay, never multiply the bottom as well. And so now we can say that x is equal to 55 over 8 minus 5. 55 over 8 minus 5, which is equal to 15 on 8, or 1.875. All right, question D. Long corresponding side over short corresponding side. X plus 1.3 over x is equal to long corresponding side over shorter side. Okay, so that's 4.7. Okay, when we add them together, we get 4.7 over 3.6. All right. So it seems here that we've got two x's. So whenever we've got an x in the numerator and a denominator, let's just cross multiply, okay, to get rid of the fractions altogether. So I'm going to have 3.6 lots of x plus 1.3, and I'm going to have 4.7x. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to expand the brackets. We've got 3.6x plus, what is 3.6 times 1.3? 4.68. That's going to equal to 4.7x. And so now I've got x on both sides of the equal sign of the equation. I'm going to get rid of the smaller one. I'm going to minus 3.6x from both sides. So that'll leave me with 4.68 on the left and 1.1x on the right. And now we can divide both sides by 1.1. 4.68 divided by 1.1, which is 4.25. Now the question says, round your answer to one decimal place in part D. So 4.3. So it's approximately equal to 4.3 to one decimal place. All right, let's have a look at some HSC questions. Pause the video, have a go with this one. All right, triangles ABC and DEF are similar. Which expression could be used to find the value of x? So x is here, right? We can see that this side matches with this one. It's pretty obvious that they match. So the scale factor will be the biggest over the smallest. Now, x is part of the bigger similar figure. Okay, so we can see here 15 is bigger than 10, so this is the bigger one. So that means we're going to take the corresponding side, which one matches with the x, the y, and we're going to multiply it by the scale factor. So therefore, x is equal to y times the 15 on 10, which is C. All right. 2008 question 20. Why don't you pause the video and have a go with this one? All right, a point P lies between a tree 2 meters high and a tower 8 meters high. P is 3 meters away from the base of the tree. From P, the angles of elevation to the top of the tree and to the top of the tower are equal. So this here, if that's x, this is also x. What is the distance, x, from P to the top of the tower? So what is this distance here? What is this x? Okay, how long is that? That's what the question is asking. So because that's x, I might not call these x. Let's just call them y instead. But the fact that they are both equal means that these two triangles are actually similar to each other. Okay, because that's 90, that's 90. If these two are equal, these these two here have to also be equal, so they're similar. And what do we know about similar triangles? That the corresponding sides are in the same ratio. So what matches? Well, this 8 matches with the 2. So we can see here that scale factor is actually equal to 8 over 2, which is 4. Now this x matches with this, but we don't have that. So what does that mean we need to do? We need to use Pythagoras' theorem. So I might call this C. We'll need to use Pythagoras' theorem to work out that length, and then we can just times it by 4. So C squared is equal to 2 squared plus 3 squared. Which is 13. So C is equal to the square root of 13, which is about 3.6. Okay. I might do it to a few more decimal places. 6.0555. All right. So now we've done that, we know that that x therefore has to equal to that length, the smaller corresponding side, times the scale factor. So I'm going to multiply this by 4 to give me 14.42 meters D. Alright, and let's have a look at, I think, two more. Okay, so pause the video, have a go with this one. Alright, what scale factor has been used to transform triangle A to triangle B? So we can see here that this is the original, okay, from A to B. So what is the scale factor? Scale factor is the largest divided by the smallest. Okay, in fact all of them, 6 divided by 3 is also 2, 3 divided by 1.5 is also 2. But this is not a scale factor that's been used to transform A into B. Because if the scale factor was 2, that means we're multiplying each of these by 2 to get whatever these are. But 3 times 2 is not 1.5. 6 times 2 is not 3. So actually, the scale factor from A to B is actually the reciprocal, 1 over 2. Okay, that's 2 over 1. So we're going to flip it. So the answer is A. And so we can just double check our answer. If I were to multiply each of these sides by that half, do I get this? 8 times half, is that 4? Yes. 6 times half, is it 3? Yes. 3 times half, is it 1.5? Yeah. Alright, and last one. Have a go with this one. Pause the video and then check your answer. Alright, a model yacht has 2 triangular sails. These triangles are similar to each other. Some dimensions of the sails in centimeters are shown on the diagram. What is the total area of both sails? So that means we need to work out the area of each one and then add them together. Now, because this is 5 and this is 15, we know that the scale factor is 15 on 5 because those two sides correspond to each other. They're both the hypotenuse. So it's equal to 3. Well, in order to work out the area of a triangle, it's half times base times height. So we need this to work out this one because they match. So if we call this one x and we call this one y, y being this entire length here, well, x is equal to the smaller corresponding side multiplied by the scale factor. Y is equal to the smaller corresponding side multiplied by the scale factor. So we know this is 9. We know this is 12. And so now we can work out the total area of both sails. So area of the small one is half times base times height. Okay, remember it's perpendicular height, so not the slant height. And the area of the big one is half times base times perpendicular height of 12, not the 15. So, what do we get? We get 60. C. Alright, so that's it for this video. So, what did we learn from today's lesson? Okay, we learned what similar figures are. Similar figures are pretty much just two shapes that are the same size, but same shape, but different in size. That means all the corresponding angles are equal, and all the corresponding sides are in the same ratio. And that's really useful, knowing that they are in the same ratio. That's really useful in working out any unknown sides. Okay. We said in order to do that, we need to work out the scale factor. So we need two numbers, one from the larger shape and one from the small shape where they are both matching. Okay, so this side matches with another side. So when we do that, it's going to give us some fraction or a number or a decimal. And to work out an unknown side, we either multiply or divide a corresponding side by the scale factor. Okay, so if it's part of a larger one, we multiply. If it's part of a smaller one, we divide. Okay, and that's pretty much what we did in this lesson. So, if you have any questions, please comment down below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. And if you would like more content, please consider subscribing to my channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.